again. Welcome to Dispute Sports. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and listening, however you are. I'm your host, Kyle Neumann, live from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I'm running the show solo again today as Rhett Hensley is getting back into the swing of life after his crazy extended vacation due to Hurricane Irma. Glad he's safe. Looking forward to having him join Dispute Sports again next week. But you guys get me again today, and I will recap Week 1 of the NFL season, highlight Week 2 of the college football season, and bring hot takes back with segments on the U.S. Open recap in tennis and the FedEx Cup Playoffs in golf. I appreciate everybody tuning in. It has been a full last week of sports, and I'm going to jump right into NFL Week 1 recap. I want to start with opening night last Thursday night in the NFL. It was the New England Patriots at home to the Kansas City Chiefs, and boy, was this a game that a lot of people did not expect. Defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots at home, banner unveiled, Mark Wahlberg, all these Boston figures and celebrities pre-game, getting the crowd hyped up, a lot of excitement in Massachusetts as the Patriots were starting their 2017 season trying to repeat as Super Bowl champions. New England had never lost an opening game after winning the Super Bowl the previous year, and that streak ended to the Kansas City Chiefs. They came out on fire, going toe-to-toe with this Patriots team, showing that New England is not going to have an easy run in the AFC this year, as the Kansas City Chiefs stormed into Foxborough and upset the Patriots by 2 touchdowns, 42-27. And it was a game Tom Brady would really like to forget. He didn't play awful, but he didn't play great. He went 16 for 36 for 267 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, good for a 70 quarterback rating, just average. It looked a little old. Alex Smith had a career game. I mean, he went 28 for 35 for 368 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That was good for a 148.6 quarterback rating. Unbelievable game from Alex Smith. That was not the only player for the Chiefs who had himself a nice game. How about running back Kareem Hunt? Yeah, Kareem Hunt had 17 carries for 148 yards and a touchdown. He also had 5 receptions for 98 yards and 2 touchdown catches. Can anybody say maybe a star in the making here for the Kansas City Chiefs? The 3rd round pick in this year's, the 22nd pick in the 3rd round of this year's NFL draft out of Toledo. Boy, he had a nice coming out party, and the Chiefs just made the Patriots defense look silly. And probably couldn't have been worse news for New England to start the season off, as the Patriots lost their leading receiver from last year and probably Tom Brady's favorite target, slot receiver Julian Edelman, out for the year. Just so unfortunate for the Patriots, and you hate to see any team suffer an injury, but this one really hurts for the New England Patriots, the star receiver that Edelman is. And to make matters worse, Danny Amendola also got injured in this game at receiver for the New England Patriots. Kansas City also lost a key player. Safety Eric Berry, one of the best safeties in the league, was carted off with an Achilles tendon injury that Coach Andy Reid feared was a tear that would sideline Berry for the season. So, very unfortunate news for Kansas City in a game that was all happiness for them. All right, so that kicked off week 1 of the NFL season. And then you just had a plethora of great games on Sunday and Monday night. I want to start with the Chicago Bears. Bear down, Chicago Bears. How would they look opening the season at home at Soldier Field, taking on the defending NFC champions and Super Bowl runner-up Atlanta Falcons, with the whole quarterback controversy there? Should Glennon be the starter, or should Fox go with the young Mitchell Trubisky, the number 2 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, who looked good in the preseason? A lot of pressure. Well, they stuck with Glennon, and the Bears fought hard against this mighty Atlanta team, falling just short 23-17 to the Falcons. Mike Glennon went 26 for 40 for 213 yards, had 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, good for an 86.8 quarterback rating. Matt Ryan did what Matt Ryan does. He went 21 for 30 for 321 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, good for a 116.1 quarterback rating. And Ryan was clutch, as he usually is. In the fourth quarter, he had 2 touchdown drives, and the defense was able to hold off Chicago for that 6-point victory. But a lot of positives to take away from the Bears' performance if you're a Chicago fan. So that was a very, very competitive game there. I want to talk about the Indianapolis Colts situation and the pathetic outing for Indianapolis as they took on the Los Angeles Rams in California, and it was a blowout as the Colts were without star quarterback Andrew Luck, who is still recovering from offseason shoulder surgery, and boy did they miss him, as Scott Tolzien, the backup, got the start from Wisconsin, and he had himself a game to forget, as he went 9 for 18 for 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 33.8 quarterback rating, and the Rams rolled over the Colts 46-9. Jared Goff looked good in this one. He had 306 yards passing, went 21 for 29, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, good for a 117.9 quarterback rating. Some more scores from week 1. The Jets continued their downward trend of the last few years, losing to the Buffalo Bills on the road 21-12. Baltimore went into Cincinnati and blanked the Bengals, getting the win 20-0. Andy Dalton had maybe the worst performance of his career, as he went 16 for 31 for 170 yards, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. That was good for a 28.4 quarterback rating. Goodness gracious. The Pittsburgh Steelers had themselves a tough division matchup. Close game at Cleveland, getting the victory 21-18. Big Ben looked pretty good in this one, went 24 for 36 for 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, good for a 95 quarterback rating. The young rookie starting quarterback for the Browns, Deshaun Kaiser, didn't have himself an awful game with all that pressure on him to maybe be the franchise quarterback there in Cleveland, which they desperately need. He went 20 for 30 for 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, good for an 85.7 quarterback rating. He also had 5 carries for 17 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So, pretty good game there for Kizer. And again, much like the Bears should have some positive takeaways from their loss to the Falcons, the Browns have some positive takeaways from this close loss to the mighty Steelers in that NFC North division. Elsewhere, Matt Stafford proved that he was worth that money that he got as he led the Lions to a 35-23 victory over the Arizona Cardinals at home. Stafford went 29 for 41 for 292 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, good for a 113.1 quarterback rating. Carson Palmer looked old in this one. He had 268 yards passing, went 27 for 48, had 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, a 53.1 quarterback rating. Lions defense played well, but probably the most unfortunate news coming out of this game on Arizona's side is star running back for the Cardinals, David Johnson, left the game with a left wrist injury. Turns out to be a lot worse than people expected. He had to have surgery on his left wrist, and he is expected to miss 2 to 3 months as he was placed on IR. So a big hole to fill there for Arizona. Some other scores. Oakland, under the David Carr new era, coming back off of his injury last year, looked good as Oakland went to Nashville and beat the Titans 26-16. Philadelphia got a big road victory in a Week 1 division matchup against the Washington Redskins, 30-17. Carson Wentz looked pretty good, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 307 yards passing. Kirk Cousins didn't look awful, had a touchdown and an interception, 240 yards passing. Jacksonville went to Houston and beat the Texans 29-7. Blake Bortles had a pretty good game, had 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Leonard Fournette, though, stole the show, had 26 carries for 100 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Very nice game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, getting a big division win. However, they do suffer some big news and a big loss that they did not want to hear. Wide receiver Allen Robinson was removed from the game after suffering a left knee injury, and it is confirmed that he has a torn ACL, is going to undergo surgery in the coming weeks, and will be out for the year. So, without Robinson now, the Jaguars will have to rely heavily on Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns, as well as veteran Aurelius Ben. So, not good news there for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Seattle and Green Bay squared off in a heavyweight match for Week 1 at Lambeau Field, and the Green Bay Packers looked good, defeating the Seahawks 17-9. Aaron Rodgers, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 311 yards passing. Russell Wilson didn't look great, had 158 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The Packers defense played excellent, and the weapons that Green Bay has on offense is just endless, and it's just going to be another year where Green Bay has one of the best offenses in the league, and that's why they will be competing in the NFC conference as one of the best teams, trying to make another run at the NFC Championship game. Going to be tough to beat. Carolina took care of San Francisco on the road 23-3. The Sunday night game, Dallas and New York, was another big headliner as it was ruled in favor of Ezekiel Elliott, running back for the Cowboys, that he would be able to play in Week 1, and this being because of the block that the NFLPA filed against the NFL on the 6-game suspension. It came after practice leading up to this past weekend, Week 1, and therefore, because of the rule of the news coming after a practice of a game week, allowed Elliott to play in this game, and then a ruling by a judge on Friday that will hear this block that the NFLPA filed for against the NFL is going to the appeals court, and because of this, Ezekiel Elliott's suspension is put on hold, so he will be able to play going forward until there is a decision made by this appeals court, and that could be next year, it could be in a month, there's no telling, but Elliott played in this game against the rival Giants at home, and he picked right up where he left off last year as the league's leading rusher. He had 24 carries for 104 yards, no touchdowns on the ground. Dak Prescott looked good, picking up right where he left off. He went 24 for 39 for 268 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, good for a 90.5 quarterback rating. Eli Manning was without leading receiver Odell Beckham Jr., trying to get healthy from the injury he sustained in the preseason. And Eli Manning looked a bit overrated and not one of his better performances. Went 29 for 38 for 220 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, good for a 78.8 quarterback rating, and it was all Dallas 19-3. The 2 Monday night doubleheaders. The Minnesota Vikings hosting the New Orleans Saints got the victory 29-19 over Drew Brees and company, and boy, did the Vikings look good. Sam Bradford showing that he can serve as the Vikings' temporary but solid replacement for Teddy Bridgewater as he's still trying to recover from his knee injuries last year. Sam Bradford went 27 for 32 for 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, good for a 143 quarterback rating. And then rookie sensation running back Dalvin Cook from Florida State looked really good, showing that, the Vikings aren't going to miss Adrian Peterson because they have me as this new young talent. Had 22 carries for 127 yards, no touchdowns on the ground. How about Stephon Diggs? On a night where future Hall of Famer, I believe, and Vikings great wide receiver Randy Moss being inducted into the Vikings Ring of Honor at halftime. Stephon Diggs, the young stud for the Vikings, was inspired by Moss in this game, he said, and he sure looked like it. One of the best receivers in the league, had a great performance, had 7 receptions for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the other side, Adrian Peterson making his Minnesota debut as the new Saint was shut out, had only 6 carries for 18 yards, no touchdowns. Drew Brees didn't play bad, went 27 for 37 for 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, good for a 104.7 quarterback rating. Just didn't have enough help, and the defense did not play good, and that's been a big issue for New Orleans. On the other side, for Minnesota, their defense looked great, and that's going to be a key for them this year. So the NFC North did really good in Week 1. And then in the final Week 1 game, the doubleheader Monday night, Denver hosting the Los Angeles Chargers, the newly relocated Los Angeles Chargers. And it was a good game in this division matchup, and the edge goes to the stingy Broncos defense, and Denver in the Mile High City getting the victory 24-21 over Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. Trevor Siemian, named the starter for the Broncos, picked up right where he left off last year before he got injured. He went 17 for 28 for 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, good for a 94.2 quarterback rating. Phillip Rivers had a good game too, like he usually does. He went 22 for 33 for 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, good for a 99.6 quarterback rating. The savvy vet just didn't get enough help on defense, and Denver's defense, one of the best in the league, looked good, and the late field goal was able to get the Broncos the victory at home. And that did Week 1 in for the NFL. Week 2 does get underway tonight, Thursday Night Football, as the 0-1 Houston Texans travel to the 0-1 Cincinnati Bengals. 7:30 Central Time in a game where both teams are trying to bounce back after poor Week 1 performances. A couple other injuries I do want to note before I move on to college football Week 2 recap that happened in Week 1 for a couple teams that were big losses, one of them being the Chicago Bears. They lost Kevin White, wide receiver, 7th overall pick in the 2015 draft. This was only his 5th game of his career because he has been battling injuries. Well, it looks like he's done for the year again, as he is going to need season-ending surgery for his fractured scapula that he had in this game. And it is just so unfortunate that this young talent cannot stay healthy and prove how effective he can be in the NFL, as he was so good at West Virginia in college. The Bears might be needing to move on from this player in the near future. But I wanted to mention that the Cowboys lost Orlando Scandrick, cornerback, left-hand injury. He will not play in Week 2, but he's aiming for a return in Week 3. Linebacker Reuben Foster for the 49ers appeared to injure his lower right leg, and it was then changed to an ankle injury, was out in that game, and he has officially a high ankle sprain. Timeline for return not announced yet. So the young talent out of Alabama, 49ers fans hoping can get back quickly. Okay, that'll do it for Week 1 recap in the NFL. Some extra long NFL football talk for you football fans, as the season is here and it is off to a great start. I want to switch gears now and talk about college football. And I'm recapping Week 2 of the college football season. That's right, hard to believe that we are already in Week 3 of the college football season. But Week 2 had some excellent football games. I mean excellent. As expected, every week, great games. But I want to take a look at some of the top 25's best games. And the one I want to start with is where College Game Day was for Ohio State and Oklahoma, matchup of the number 5 Sooners and the number 2 Buckeyes in Columbus, and also a quarterback matchup here of Heisman candidates. Baker Mayfield for Oklahoma, J.T. Barrett for the Buckeyes, and edge Baker Mayfield and the Oklahoma Sooners scoring 3 straight touchdowns in the second half to run away in this one from Ohio State, getting the 2-touchdown victory and revenge for last year's loss in Norman to the Buckeyes. 31-16 Oklahoma with the victory. Baker Mayfield went 27 for 35 for 386 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Good for a 198.1 quarterback rating. What a game for Mayfield and that offense. J.T. Barrett, on the other hand, didn't have a good game. He went 19 for 35 for 183 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception, 92.5 quarterback rating. So this one could have had some big playoff implications come later in the year. We will see. Ohio State needs to bounce back. Oklahoma off to a great start this year, and that was a very big victory that the committee will certainly keep their eye on. Other big ones. How about Notre Dame hosting Georgia? Number 24, Notre Dame. Number 15, Georgia. And this one was a dandy. A pretty defensive game. Came down to the wire. The Georgia Bulldogs got a strip sack late in the game to seal a victory on the road, 20-19 over the Irish. Georgia seems to be back in the SEC. Notre Dame left circling the wagons under Kelly, the head coach. Stanford and USC, a Pac-12 conference showdown here. A matchup of the 14th ranked Stanford Cardinal and the 6th ranked USC Trojans. At the Coliseum in Los Angeles, USC dominated and looked like one of the best teams in the country, and Sam Darnold looked a lot better in this one, the Heisman candidate, and a lot of talks about maybe first-round pick in next year's NFL draft. The Trojans got the victory over the Cardinal, 42-24. Sam Darnold went 21 for 26 for 316 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, good for a 218.2 quarterback rating. Another big one in college football. Number 13 Auburn traveled to Death Valley to take on the 3rd-ranked Clemson Tigers. Clemson, in a defensive battle, showed how stout that defense still is. The defending national champions got the victory over the Auburn Tigers 14-6, and again, defense being the story in that game. Another good game. Louisville traveling to North Carolina, the 17th-ranked Cardinals behind Heisman candidate this year and the Heisman winner last year, Lamar Jackson, looked good, putting up 47 points on North Carolina, winning by 12, 47-35 in Chapel Hill, and boy, did Lamar Jackson have a huge day. Sure seemed to put his stamp down for another Heisman year, and he had 393 yards passing, went 25 for 39, had 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions, good for a 174.1 quarterback rating, and on the ground he did his damage like he does too. Had 19 carries for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. This man is just a stud. Put up 705 total yards of offense for the Cardinals. I mean, can anybody say Heisman Trophy winner already? Lamar Jackson, certainly the front runner. Michigan got a 22-point victory at home against the Cincinnati Bearcats, 36-14. Penn State, fourth in the nation, beat Pittsburgh 33-14. TCU went to Arkansas and got the victory 28-7. And how about this wild one? Washington State at home, the 20th ranked Cougars, beat Boise State in a shootout, 47-44 in triple overtime. What a game there. I want to give a shout out to my Iowa Hawkeyes. In the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, Iowa at Iowa State got a comeback victory, 44-41 over the Cyclones in overtime behind Nate Stanley, the sophomore quarterback out of Menominee, Wisconsin. Looked like he might be a Heisman candidate if he keeps up these numbers, because the Hawkeye quarterback went 27 for 41 for 333 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was good for a 174.3 quarterback rating. Running back for the Hawkeyes, a future first-round draft pick next year, Akram Wadley. He had 28 carries for 118 yards and a touchdown. Great win for Iowa as they are 2-0 to start off the year and are getting closer and closer to getting ranked in the top 25. A shout out to the Hoosiers bouncing back after the tough Ohio State loss at home in week 1, getting the victory at Virginia 34-17. And all of this really just goes to show how great of a college football season it is going to be again, folks, because it sure was a great week of college football, and I expect it to only get better. Okay, that will do it for college football talk. It's now time to get into the final segment. That's hot takes, 2 segments, 5 minutes each, and I want to start with the U.S. Open in tennis and recap that. Tennis's final major of the year, and it absolutely was a dandy for the men's and the women's side. But starting on the men's side, the story going into this one were all of the notable past champions, that some of the best players in the world that were out of this one. Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, Stan Wawrinka, Kei Nishikori. And despite that, you still had Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer, the 2 big names, the only names that really mattered in this one. And it sure ended up being a great run for the champion, Rafa Nadal. Rafa Nadal got his 16th Grand Slam title, the Spaniard, by defeating a surprise finalist, Kevin Anderson, in a one-sided match in straight sets. Now, this was Rafa Nadal's 3rd U.S. Open title, and just as impressive as his first, as he continues to show that age does not matter with him. Now the world number 1 with this victory, Rafa Nadal still getting it done. Everyone was wondering if there would be a Federer-Nadal match in the semifinals, which has never happened in the U.S. Open. Hard to believe, and it did not happen again as Rafa Nadal won his quarterfinals match to get into the semis, waiting for Federer, but Federer was upset by Del Potro, and that did it for Federer, who had a nice run in this U.S. Open, and still, just like Rafa, showing that the old man can get it done still. And I don't think he's going anywhere. Still playing great tennis. 2018, I expect Federer to be playing right at this level of tennis. So Nadal gets the 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 victory over Kevin Anderson. The 3 U.S. Open singles titles makes him just the 6th man in the Open era to achieve that mark. Nadal, with his 16 Grand Slam singles titles, is now only 3 behind Federer for the all-time men's mark, and he's 2 clear of any other men's competitor in history. And even if you remove his 10 French Open titles, the King of Clay, Nadal would still own 6 majors. That's equal to such Open-era greats as Boris Becker and Stefan Edberg, and just 1 behind the great John McEnroe. On the women's side, you had an all-American semifinals, and it was surely a great final as you had Sloane Stephens taking on Madison Keys, gets the straight set victory, 6-3, 6-0, to win the U.S. Open. Unranked Sloane Stephens, who was the former world number 11, fell to number 957 in the world entering August because she had 11 months off the tour due to a foot injury. But she showed us how good of a tennis player she is as she beat Venus Williams in a 3rd set tiebreak in the semifinals. Just absolutely rolled. She was ranked 83rd entering the 2017 U.S. Open. It's the lowest rank ever for a U.S. Open singles champion in the Open era, and Stephens is just the 2nd unseeded woman to hoist the trophy alongside Kim Clijsters, who actually did not have a ranking when she won here in 2009. Stephens will be number 17 in the world now with the victory. That's a stunning rise of 940 spots. And Sloane Stephens is going nowhere. Expect her to come out in 2018 and really look like that top 20 tennis player, completing her comeback. The young American is going nowhere. And that is it for tennis until 2018, when the first major of the year rolls around again, the Australian Open in January. All right. Second segment in Hot Takes, FedEx Cup Playoffs in golf. The FedEx Cup Playoffs, for those of you who do not know what I'm talking about with this, the FedEx Cup Playoffs is a series of 4 golf tournaments that determine the season champion on the U.S.-based PGA Tour. It's played from August 24th to September 24th, and it includes the following 4 events. Starts with the Northern Trust Tournament at Glen Oaks Club in Old Westbury, New York. Then the second event, the Dell Technologies Championship at TPC Boston in Norton, Massachusetts. The third, which begins today, is the BMW Championship this year at Conway Farms Golf Club in Lake Forest, Illinois, and then concludes next weekend with the Tour Championship Tournament at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the 11th FedEx Cup Playoff since it started in 2007. So we've had 2 events played already, the third getting underway today. So let's recap the first 2 that have already happened. And that, back in August, started with the Northern Trust. Dustin Johnson won on the first hole of a sudden death playoff over Jordan Spieth. It was a thrilling tournament. So how it worked after the first one, the top 100 players in the point standings advanced to the second event, Dell Technologies Championship. It started at the Northern Trust that there were 125 players eligible to play in the event. And after that, it gets cut down to 100 players for the second event, the Dell Technologies Championship. And in that tournament, which was played September 1st through the 4th, 96 people entered into this tournament, saw the young Justin Thomas, who had just won the PGA Championship, the final golf major of the year, won the Dell Technologies Championship by 3 strokes over Jordan Spieth. This was Thomas's 5th win of the season and Spieth's second runner-up finish of the 2017 playoffs. So now, after this event, the top 70 players in the point standings then advance to today's BMW Championship, and it should be an absolute phenomenal tournament as the top players in the world are looking like it in these FedEx Cup Playoffs. Let's take a look a little bit more in depth at the standings. I'll go with the top 10 FedEx Cup season point standings through the first 2 FedEx Cup events. Standing in first place, Jordan Spieth has played in 21 events this season, is at 5,071 points. He has 3 wins, 10 top 10s, and he is not very far ahead of his buddy Justin Thomas, who is in second, played in 23 events this year, is at 5,044 points. So only 27 points back is Justin Thomas. He has 5 wins this year, 11 top 10s right there. And then in third, not far behind both of them, Dustin Johnson, only 421 points back. He's played in 18 events this year, has 4,650 points. He has 4 wins and 8 top 10s this year. Dustin Johnson in third. Hideki Matsuyama in fourth with 3,021 points. He's played in 20 events, has 3 wins and 7 top 10s. And then in fifth place, Jon Rahm, who's played in 21 events, has 2,894 points, has 1 win and 9 top 10s this year. Ricky Fowler in sixth place, 19 events he's played in, has 2,217 points, 1 win, 9 top 10s, still looking for his first major, a long shot to win the FedEx Cup for sure, but has played consistent golf this year. In seventh, Mark Leishman, 2,084 points, has played in 23 events, has 1 win and 6 top 10s. In eighth place, Paul Casey, 2,065 points, played in 22 events, no wins but 8 top 10s. In ninth place, U.S. Open champion Brooks Koepka, played in 22 events, 1,952 points, has 1 win and 6 top 10s. And then rounding out the top 10, Pat Perez with 1,894 points. He's played in 24 events, has 1 win and 6 top 10s. Again, BMW Championship gets underway today. The third of the 4 events in the FedEx Cup Playoffs. So stay tuned, golf fans. Again, last year's champ, Rory McIlroy, who is certainly a long shot to win the FedEx Cup, playoffs sure is playing pretty good golf, though, this second half of the year, and that's a good sign for Rory McIlroy and his fans going into next year. But those are the current standings, and that does it for Hot Takes. And it's now time for No Disputing, Dispute Sports Random Facts segment, where we give you facts and hopefully blow your mind. And No Disputing for me today is going to be with the city of Pittsburgh. And that is, Pittsburgh is the only city where all the major sports teams, MLB, NHL, and NFL, have the same colors, black and gold. I'm going to repeat that. Pittsburgh is the only city where all the major sports teams, MLB, NHL, and NFL, have the same colors, black and gold. That's right. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL, black and gold. The Pittsburgh Penguins in the NHL, black and gold. And the Pittsburgh Pirates in the MLB, black and gold. That was No Disputing. And that does it for today's show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget, you can now subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, Spreaker, or SoundCloud, and have every episode available to you as soon as they are posted each week. You can also catch all of our podcasts on our website, DisputeSports.com. Follow us on Twitter, @DisputeSports1, @Kyle M. Neumann, @Rhett Hensley, and like and follow our Facebook page, Dispute Sports. Until next week, remember, Dispute Sports. Anything sports, anytime, anywhere. Have a great day, and enjoy the next week of sports, everyone.